Ryan was the kind of guy who never made a fuss. He showed up, did his job, and went home. No drama, no shortcuts, just steady, dependable effort every single day. He worked as a bus driver for the state transportation company. An honest job, though not exactly glamorous. But to Ryan, it meant something more. Hey everyone, welcome back to Tales Unveiled. Today's story is about patience, loyalty, and how one small act of kindness can lead to something much bigger. Let's dive in. When Ryan was younger, he had dreams, not huge ones, but real ones. He wanted to run his own transport company one day. He imagined having a small fleet of vehicles with his name on the side, helping people get where they needed to go. Life, however, had a few detours planned for him. At 37, Ryan still lived with his parents. He had gone through 2 divorces, and his dreams of running a business had been shelved somewhere between paying bills and keeping up with split shifts. But still, every morning, without fail, he woke up early to fit in a quick workout and a decent breakfast. By 7 a.m., he was already on the road, navigating his daily route. Ryan didn't have a fixed shift. Some days he'd start before dawn, others he'd begin in the afternoon. But he never complained. He liked his job, mostly because of the people. You meet all kinds on a bus. Students, workers, retirees, tourists. Some would greet him with a smile, others gave him a quick nod, and a few. Well, let's just say not everyone treats a bus driver like a human being. But Ryan had learned not to take it personally. That was just part of the job. You meet rude people, kind people, quiet ones, talkers. He didn't let it bother him anymore. One of the people who stood out to Ryan, someone who actually made him look forward to his route, was an elderly gentleman named John. He was in his 70s, still working at a small DIY store in town. John wasn't the type to sit around and waste time. He had a routine, and Ryan's bus was part of it. John was different. He always greeted Ryan warmly and struck up conversations about whatever was happening, weather, sports, even the price of groceries. Sometimes he'd sit right behind Ryan and chat the entire ride. Other times, he'd simply hand Ryan a cup of coffee, say a few kind words, and head to his favorite seat. It was a small thing, that cup of coffee, but to Ryan it meant everything. That little gesture was often the highlight of his morning. Over time, a friendship grew between them, stronger than most people would expect between a bus driver and a passenger. What John didn't know was that Ryan saw him as something more than a friendly regular. Ryan saw John as the father he had always wished for. You see, Ryan had a father, but it was a strained relationship, to say the least. Growing up, his dad was rarely home, and when he was either drunk or angry. The man had a temper and didn't hesitate to take out on Ryan, yelling, criticizing, even worse. Ryan spent most of his childhood walking on eggshells, trying not to upset the man of the house. By the time his dad finally got sober and tried to make amends, it was too late. Ryan had built up walls, thick, protective ones. Every time his dad tried to talk, the conversation hit a dead end. They just couldn't connect. It was like speaking different languages. That's why John's presence on the bus meant so much. John was warm. He listened. He cared. Every Father's Day, Ryan would even buy him a small gift. John always smiled and thanked him, assuming it was just a sweet gesture of respect. But for Ryan, it was deeper than that. John had 5 grown sons, and he often talked about them during their rides. He'd tell stories about their childhood, their jobs, or something funny one of them did recently. Ryan would chuckle and say, "I hope I get to meet them one day." John would reply, "It's a small world, Ryan. Who knows? Maybe you've already met one of them and didn't even realize." "You might be right," Ryan would say, and they'd both laugh. Now, John was never late. Not once in all the years Ryan had picked him up. The man was punctual to a fault, always at the bus stop 10 or 15 minutes early, rain or shine. The only time Ryan didn't see him was when he had a day off, and John made sure to let him know in advance. But one morning, things were different. Ryan had started his day like any other. He'd already picked up several passengers and was pulling up to John's usual stop. Only, John wasn't there. At first, Ryan wasn't too worried. Maybe John had an off day and forgot to mention it. But something didn't feel right. 5 minutes passed. Still no sign of him. The passengers on board began to murmur, growing impatient. Some had tight schedules and started glancing at their watches, irritated. But Ryan stayed put. He couldn't bring himself to leave without at least waiting a little longer. Then, just as he was about to give up, he spotted someone hurrying down the sidewalk. It was John. "Thank goodness, Ryan. I thought you'd left already," he said, panting slightly as he climbed aboard. "I waited. I figured you might still show up," Ryan said, relieved. "Are you all right? It's not like you to be late." John nodded. "Didn't feel too great this morning. Called in sick, but my boss wouldn't hear of it. Yesterday was my day off, so he told me to come in. I've got this tightness in my chest. It's probably nothing." Ryan looked concerned. "Still, if you're not feeling well, maybe it's better to take the day off." "Yeah, I'll be fine. Sorry I didn't bring your coffee today. I barely had time to get out the door." "It's all right, John. I'm just glad you made it." After dropping off all the passengers, including John, Ryan's phone buzzed. His boss wanted him in the office. Immediately, Ryan's heart sank. When he arrived, Mr. Phillips, his supervisor, wasn't in a good mood. "I've had complaints," Phillips said, voice cold. "Is it true you held up the bus this morning waiting for a passenger?" "It was just a few minutes," Ryan explained. "The man wasn't feeling well. I didn't think it would hurt anyone." Phillips shook his head. "A few minutes? Some of your passengers were late to work. That's not acceptable." "I understand. I promise it won't happen again." "You're right, it won't. You're suspended. 2 weeks. No pay. Maybe that'll help you rethink your priorities," Ryan pleaded. But Phillips had already moved on. That afternoon, Ryan returned home early, silent and dejected. When his parents asked what happened, he just brushed it off. What was the point? He let down his passengers, lost his income for 2 weeks, and worse. He wouldn't see John during that time. But what Ryan didn't know was that this small act of kindness, this one quiet decision to wait, was about to change everything. 2 days had passed since Ryan's suspension. He had spent most of that time inside, mostly in his room, either lying in bed or staring blankly out the window. He hadn't touched his workout routine, hadn't gone out for fresh air, hadn't even talked to many people. The silence in the house was almost louder than his thoughts. But on that second morning, something strange broke the stillness. A deep, low rumble in the distance. At first, Ryan thought it was a passing truck. But the sound didn't fade away. It grew louder, closer. Then he recognized it. Motorcycles. 5 of them. The engines echoed down the street, getting closer to his home until they finally pulled up right in front of the house. Ryan got up and peeked out the window. Confused, his mind immediately went to the worst. Had something happened to John? The men shut off their bikes one by one. They looked organized, like they weren't just passing through. They were here for a reason. A knock came at the door. Ryan hesitated, but then he walked over and opened it. "Hi," said the man standing at the front of the group. He extended a hand. "I'm Ethan, John's eldest son." Ryan blinked. "Come again?" "John, my father. You've been driving him to work for years," Ethan said, his tone warm and respectful. "We've heard a lot about you." Ryan shook his hand slowly, still unsure what was happening. How did you find me?" "It's a small town," Ethan said with a chuckle. "Dad told us enough for us to figure out who you were. He was worried when you didn't show up the past couple mornings." Yeah. "I've been suspended for waiting for him the other day." Ryan looked down, a little embarrassed. "Some passengers reported me for holding up the route. My boss wasn't too happy about it." Ethan nodded slowly, glancing back at the others, who were listening quietly. "He told us you waited for him even when he was late. Said you were more worried about his chest pain than the schedule. That really meant a lot to him." Ryan shrugged. "He's like a father to me. I didn't even think twice." "Well," Ethan said, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth, "that brings us here." Ryan looked at him, puzzled. "You see, my brothers and I just launched a new logistics company. Mostly bike-based for now, but it's growing fast. And we need someone solid, someone who understands people, someone we can trust to manage operations while we focus on the field side of things. Ryan tilted his head. Are you saying you're offering me a job? Not just any job, Ethan said. A managerial role. You'd oversee scheduling, dispatch, the whole workflow. It's full-time with benefits. Pays about 3 times more than what you made driving the bus. And if things go well, there's even room for shares in the company. Ryan was stunned. I don't even know what to say. You already said it when you waited for my dad, Ethan replied. He's always spoken highly of you. Says you're the most genuine person he sees every day. For a long moment, Ryan just stood there, trying to process it all. A 2-week unpaid suspension had just turned into a job offer that sounded like the beginning of something big. And it wasn't just the money or the role. It was the fact that someone somewhere had noticed, that someone saw value in him. I'd be honored, Ryan finally said. Honestly, I don't even know what I did to deserve this. But thank you. Ethan clapped a hand on his shoulder. Our dad thinks the world of you. And so do we. Welcome aboard. Before the men left, they shared details on where and when Ryan should report. The whole thing felt surreal. Like life had turned a corner he hadn't even seen coming. Later that day, John called him. Ryan, he said cheerfully, I hear you met my boys. I did, Ryan said, smiling. They offered me a job. I don't even know what to say, John. Well, how about when do I start? John laughed gently. You didn't have to do that for me. Oh, but I did, John replied, his voice soft. You waited for me when no one else would have. You showed more care in 10 minutes than most people show in a lifetime. My sons needed someone like you, and I figured maybe you needed them too. Ryan was quiet for a moment. You know, I used to wish I had a father like you. John paused. And I used to wish one of my boys would turn out like you. It wasn't long before Ryan started his new job. The workspace was humble but full of energy. The brothers treated him like family from day one. No formalities, no superiority, just respect, trust, brotherhood. John also left his job at the DIY store. His health had been shaky, and frankly, they hadn't treated him right for years. Now, he helped out around the logistics shop, light tasks, some organizing, some cleaning, but mostly he was just there enjoying the company of his sons and his newfound 6th son, Ryan. For the first time in years, Ryan didn't feel like a burden. He didn't feel stuck. He had purpose, connection, and room to grow. The work was challenging, sure, but it was rewarding. Every day he showed up early, just like he did for the bus job. But this time, he wasn't counting down the minutes. He was looking forward to every single one. And the best part? He and John grew even closer. They'd talk over lunch, share old stories, sometimes just sit in silence. But that silence was comfortable. It was the kind you only share with someone who feels like home. Ryan had found something he never expected, belonging. At his old job, he was just another face behind the wheel, a name on a shift schedule. People barely noticed him unless he was late, or traffic held things up, or someone wanted to complain. But here, at the new logistics company, it was different. The warehouse buzzed with energy. The brothers, Ethan, Marcus, Leo, Jordan, and Caleb, had created something special. Each of them brought a different skill to the table, and Ryan's addition brought structure and calm to the organized chaos. He wasn't just overseeing delivery schedules or managing routes. He was helping build a company from the ground up. And every single day, John would show up. He'd come in mid-morning, walking a little slower than he used to, but always with that same warm smile. He never acted like a boss or tried to pull rank as the founder's father. Instead, he swept the floors, organized boxes, brewed coffee, and shared stories with whoever would listen. Ryan often found himself gravitating to John's corner of the warehouse during breaks. You know, John said one day as they sat on a pair of folding chairs, "This place reminds me of my early days with the boys." All 5 of them were so different. I used to wonder how I'd ever get them to work together without pulling each other's hair out. And now look at them, Ryan said with a grin, sipping his coffee. Now look at us, John replied. You're one of us now. Ryan didn't respond right away, but the words hit him in a place that had long felt hollow. He smiled, not just with his face, but with his whole heart. The weeks passed quickly. Ryan's suspension ended, but he never returned to the bus company. There was no need. In fact, word started spreading around town that the new logistics outfit on the west side was growing like wildfire. Small businesses, restaurants, even medical supply companies began reaching out for deliveries. Ryan streamlined the entire dispatch system. He implemented digital tools for tracking, improved route planning, and even started mentoring a few new hires the brothers had brought in. At night, Ryan would drive home feeling fulfilled. He wasn't just earning a paycheck. He was part of something real. His relationship with his own father, however, remained complicated. The man had heard about Ryan's new job but didn't say much. They still lived in the same house, still passed each other in the hallway, still shared dinner in silence. Ryan tried, sometimes, to bridge the gap, a casual question here, a shared memory there. But the wall between them hadn't come down yet. One evening, John invited Ryan over for a barbecue with his sons and their families. It was a warm Saturday afternoon. The backyard was full of laughter, the smell of grilled food, and the clink of drinks being poured. Kids ran through sprinklers. Someone set up a Bluetooth speaker and played old rock songs that made John tap his feet. As the sun dipped low, casting everything in golden light, Ethan stood up and raised a glass. "To Ryan," he said, "we didn't know much about you before you came to us. Just what our dad told us. But he was right. You've shown up for this family, for this business, and most importantly, for him, and we're better because of it." Everyone raised their glasses. Ryan stood there, stunned, as a round of applause echoed through the yard. He looked over at John, who just smiled and nodded. After dinner, John sat beside him on the porch steps. "You okay, son?" he asked. Ryan swallowed hard. "I've never had anyone say anything like that about me before." "You earned it," John said simply. Ryan looked out across the yard, the soft glow of string lights illuminating faces filled with joy and peace. "You know, all those years I spent driving the bus, I never thought anything would change. I thought that was it for me. Sometimes," John said, "you just need the right people to believe in you." Ryan nodded slowly. "I think I finally believe in myself, too." Back at the warehouse, things were moving fast. The team began expanding outside of town, taking contracts in nearby cities. Ryan found himself busier than ever, but he loved it. He woke up each day with a sense of purpose. And he wasn't the only one growing. John's health improved, too. Maybe it was a lighter workload, or maybe it was just the joy of spending time with his sons. Or maybe it was having Ryan around, someone who treated him not as an old man, but as a mentor, a friend, a father figure. One afternoon, as they were wrapping up for the day, Ryan handed John a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. "What's this?" John asked. "Father's Day is coming up. Figured I'd get ahead this year." John opened the box to find a vintage-style pocket watch. Inside the lid, engraved in neat cursive, were the words, "For the time you gave me, Ryan." John blinked fast and cleared his throat. "You're going to make an old man cry, son. You already gave me more than I could ever return," Ryan said. Ryan didn't talk about his past often, but over time, the brothers started learning more about him, his broken childhood, the pain he carried, and how, despite everything, he had chosen kindness, chosen patience, chosen loyalty, and now, those choices had brought him a second chance, a new life, a new family. Funny how everything started with just 10 minutes of waiting at a bus stop. As the logistics company continued to grow, so did Ryan's confidence. The man who used to quietly keep to himself now found purpose not only in organizing delivery routes and managing drivers, but also in mentoring younger employees. He taught them more than just logistics. He taught them how to treat people, how to listen, how to show up for someone even when it's inconvenient. Word spread in the local community that the company wasn't just efficient, it was kind. Customers praised how the team went the extra mile, literally and figuratively. Packages were delivered with care. Delays were explained honestly. And if something went wrong, someone like Ryan was on the phone, making it right, not reading from a script, but speaking from the heart. One evening, while staying late to finalize a quarterly report, Ryan noticed John sitting quietly in the break area, looking out the window. "You all right?" Ryan asked, walking over with 2 mugs of coffee, one black, one with cream, just the way John liked it. John took the cup, smiling, just thinking about how fast things change. This time last year, I was pushing hardware carts and wondering if I'd ever slow down. Now here I am. "I think about that too," Ryan said, taking the seat beside him. "I thought driving the bus was going to be it for me. Nothing wrong with it. But I always felt like I was meant to build something. I just didn't know how." "Well," John said, "you didn't just build something. You built someone. The way the boys look at you now, the way the crew listens when you talk. You become a foundation here." Ryan glanced out the window. "I wish my dad could see that." John looked over at him, his voice gentle. "You ever talk to him about all this?" Ryan shook his head. "Not really. He still doesn't say much. I don't think he knows how. Maybe. Or maybe he's just waiting for the right moment." That conversation stayed with Ryan for days. As much as he loved his new life, there was still a part of him that felt incomplete. He had built a new family, found a new father figure, and earned the respect he'd longed for. But there was something heavy that he hadn't yet let go of. The wound left behind by the father he still lived with. One Sunday afternoon, Ryan sat down at the kitchen table with his father. It was awkward at first, just the clink of forks and the soft from the fridge. But then Ryan spoke up. "Hey, I wanted to tell you something." His father looked up, surprised. "I got a new job, a really good one. I help run a logistics company now. It's doing well." A long pause. "That's so?" His father said, eyes narrowing just a little. "You seem different lately." "I feel different," Ryan replied. "More settled." Another pause. Then his father said, "I always knew you had it in you. I didn't know how to say it." Ryan felt his throat tighten. "You don't have to. I just wanted you to know I'm okay now." His father gave a small nod. "That's good, son. That's real good." And that was it. No dramatic embrace. No tearful apology. Just a simple exchange. But for Ryan, it was enough. A door cracked open that day. And that crack, small as it was, let in just enough light to make peace with the past. Back at the warehouse, new hires were coming in weekly. Ryan developed a full training system, and John's sons gave him the green light to begin expanding into a second location. They even printed new company shirts with a slogan Ryan had coined, "Driven by Purpose." The guys joked that Ryan should trademark it, but the phrase meant something personal to him. He had spent so many years driving, but only now did he feel like he was driving toward something. One particularly busy Friday, Ryan received a package at work. No return address. Inside was a framed photo of the old bus he used to drive, with a note written in thick black marker, "To the driver who never left anyone behind." There was no name, but Ryan knew who it was from. He hung the photo in his office, right above the desk where he now signed delivery contracts and organized regional expansion plans. A few weeks later, the company hosted its first staff appreciation event. Nothing fancy, just a cookout at the park. Ryan organized most of it himself. He made sure everyone got recognition, from the drivers to the warehouse workers, even the interns who handled customer service calls. John stood by the grill, flipping burgers and laughing with his sons. Ryan stood nearby, watching the scene, his arms crossed, a quiet smile on his face. "You know," Ethan said, walking up beside him, "Dad keeps saying how lucky we are to have found you." Ryan chuckled. "Pretty sure I'm the lucky one." "Maybe it's both," Ethan replied. "You waiting those 10 minutes for our dad. It was a turning point. For all of us." Ryan nodded. "I was just doing what felt right." "And that," Ethan said, "is exactly why we trust you to help lead this company." The sky shifted to golden hues as the sun began to set. Kids were playing. Music was softly playing from a Bluetooth speaker, and laughter filled the air. Ryan looked around and realized this was his life now, not something he was dreaming of, not something he was waiting on. He had arrived. Months passed. Seasons changed. And the logistics company, once just a bold idea from five brothers, had become a regional success. Ryan now oversaw not just one, but 3 distribution centers. He coordinated a team of over 40 employees, managed contract across 2 counties, and even handled public speaking at local business events. People started referring to him as the heart of the operation, someone who led with empathy as much as efficiency. And John? He still showed up every morning. He didn't need to. His sons had insisted he rest. Take it easy. But John liked to keep his hands busy. He said it made him feel young. What really kept him coming, though, was Ryan. Their bond had grown so close that it no longer needed words. A shared glance, a silent nod, a simple morning sun was all it took. One rainy afternoon, Ryan found a quiet moment in his office and picked up his old bus driver's logbook. He had kept it all these years, part record, part journal. He flipped through the pages, remembering faces, conversations, even the times he sat alone in the park bus, wondering if life would ever change. He stopped on a page marked with a coffee stain and the words, John, 7:02 a.m., late for the first time. He smiled. That one entry had changed everything. Suddenly, the sound of light tapping interrupted his thoughts. It was Caleb, the youngest of John's sons. Hey, Caleb said. You got a minute? Ryan set the book down. Sure, what's up? I was wondering if you could look over this expansion plan. We're thinking about moving east. Ryan nodded and motioned for him to sit as they pored over the documents together. Ryan couldn't help but reflect on how surreal this all was. Not long ago, he was worrying about getting fired for waiting at a bus stop. Now, he was mapping out new territories and thinking like a founder. After Caleb left, John stepped into the office, holding a pair of coffees. You look like you could use one, he said. Thanks, John, Ryan said, taking the cup with a grin. You're really making something of yourself, Ryan. Makes an old man proud. Ryan smiled but then looked away, as if gathering courage. John, do you ever think about fate? Like, maybe all of this was meant to happen? All the time, John replied. If I hadn't waited that day, if you hadn't been late. John raised an eyebrow. If I hadn't finally been late, he corrected, grinning. Yeah, I think about that, too. They both chuckled. But I'll tell you something, John continued. The world doesn't always reward kindness immediately. Most people walk right past it. But you waited. You saw someone as a person, not just another rider. That's rare, Ryan. And it changed everything. Ryan nodded. It changed me. Later that evening, Ryan drove home, the rain pattering gently on his windshield. He passed the old bus stop. John stopped and slowed down for just a second. It was empty now. Just a bench, a faded sign, and a small shelter. But to Ryan, it wasn't just a bus stop. It was the beginning of everything. He pulled over, got out, and stood there in the drizzle, hands in his pockets. That bus stop had once felt like a dead end. Now it felt like sacred ground. The next morning, something special happened. Ryan arrived at work to find the entire team gathered in the warehouse. Balloons, a banner, laughter. Surprise, they shouted. Ryan blinked, completely caught off guard. What's going on? Ethan stepped forward with a grin. Today marks 1 year since you joined us. We couldn't let it pass quietly. Someone handed Ryan a plaque. It read, To Ryan, for reminding us that leadership isn't about position. It's about presence. Thanks for waiting. Ryan's eyes misted over. He glanced around the room, at John, at the brothers, at the new hires he'd trained, the drivers who now greeted him with fist bumps and jokes. He looked down at the plaque and then back up. Thank you, he said. This means more than I can say. And then, raising the plaque just a little, he added, but just so you know, I'm not going anywhere. Cheers erupted. Someone blasted music. A cake was brought out with the words, To the man who waited. That evening, after the party had died down, John and Ryan sat outside on the loading dock, watching the sunset. You ever think about starting your own thing? John asked. I did once, Ryan said. But this This is my thing now. It feels like mine. Well, John said, sipping his coffee, if you ever change your mind, I know 5 sons who back you without hesitation. Ryan looked over, heart full. I'm already backed by the best. Life doesn't always change in grand moments. Sometimes it changes in silence. In the minutes you wait for someone out of kindness. In the patience you offer without expecting anything in return. Ryan had no way of knowing that waiting those extra 10 minutes would be the turning point. But that small, quiet decision lit a spark that grew into a new life, a new family, a new purpose. He didn't just wait for John. He waited for himself. And when the moment came, he was ready. Love this story? Hit that like button, subscribe to Tales Unveiled, and let us know in the comments, what small act of kindness changed your life? And hey, don't forget to check out the next video that's already waiting for you. We'll see you next time. Until then, keep waiting for what matters.